It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
It's time for the weekly Conduit quiz, ladies and gentlemen. And in this week's quiz, we're going over the ever-popular concept of term limits. You know what I'm saying? It's up at conduitfraction.org. Term limits have long been a debated topic in politics at both the federal and state level. Many see term limits as a strong check and balance on public servants and prevent them from becoming career politicians dependent on their public service job. Some argue that the longer a politician is in office, the more susceptible they become to corruption and being bought off for their votes. Others argue that term limits prohibit good public servants from continuing to serve. What's the answer? Well, we'll tell you here in just a minute. Okay. This quiz does not specifically address those arguments, but instead educates the reader on the history of term limits in Arkansas, current Arkansas term limits, and a look at the proposed term limits under a citizens' initiative that may appear on the ballot in November. So here we go. Joe, how you doing, sir?
Doing good.
All right. Now it's been too long since we've done this. Towards the end of the quiz, I mean, this is a positive sound. You got a correct answer, and this is your wrong answer. Okay.
Just one wrong answer.
All right, and then this sound means you're out of time. Because sometimes I think you take too long. So I'm just letting you know that.
Whoa. That's your opinion?
It's my opinion. This is an opinionated show. We've got opinions. Oh, and look, you're on screen there. It's like the Brady Bunch. It's like, but Quiz Town. All right, so question number... What?
We need 7 more people on this.
Yeah, we do. So, when I wanted to sing the song, here's a story, but I couldn't think of anything. Number one.
About a lovely talk show.
When were term limits first passed into the Arkansas Constitution? When were they first passed, okay? 1876, 1920, 1993, or 2014. Now, you know nothing about this, right?
I have not even one clue.
Not even one clue. Okay, so we're going to ask you to use this time to think it out, Joe. 1876, 1920, 1993, or 2014.
I'm really feeling 1920. I'm really feeling 1920 for some reason.
1920, the Arkansas legislature passing term limits. All right, so you think it's 1920. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, I hope it's not 1993, because that means Arkansas term limits are as old as I am. Exactly as old as I am.
Really?
Yeah, that's the year I was born.
All right, so here we go. Your time is up. All right, so you're going with 1920.
Yep.
All right, question number 2. Under the original term limits established in Arkansas, how long could a member of the Arkansas House of Representatives serve? Was it 2 4-year terms, 8 years, 2 2-year terms, 4 years, or 3 2-year terms, 6 years, or unlimited? Okay, so under the original term limits established in Arkansas, how long could a member serve? What do you think, Joe? What is it?
I'm trying to think.
All right, well, here, relax it out. Right? We need you to relax while you do this.
The one thing I was never good at in civics was trying to remember how long a term was for
10 seconds.
A member of the House and a member of the Senate in Congress, but it's probably different here. Let's do 8 years, 2 4-year terms, because I'm not sure.
Okay, good, because you were out of time. So you're going with 2 4-year terms,
yeah.
8 years. Okay. Number 3. Under the original term limits established in Arkansas, how long could a member of the Arkansas Senate serve? Was it 2 4-year terms, 8 years, 3 2-year terms, 6 years, 2 6-year terms, 12 years, or was it unlimited?
I'm going to go with 3 2-year terms.
Okay. 3 2-year terms, 6 years. All right, question number 4. Under the original term limits established in Arkansas, how long could a politician possibly serve in total in the General Assembly in both the House and the Senate? Was it 8 total years, 10 total years, 14 total years, or unlimited?
Well, I'm just going to use simple math here. I'm going to go with 14. Because
Going with 14.
as far as I'm aware, there wasn't any restrictions on you being able to serve full term in the House and then full term in the Senate.
Okay. All right, on to question 5. That you can find this quiz, by the way, over at conduitforaction.org. When were term limits amended in the Arkansas Constitution?
It definitely wasn't amended 24 years ago, so it was amended in 2014.
2014. Okay, that's your answer, 2014. Your options were 1920, 1976, 1993, and 2014. Question number 6. Who was the lead sponsor of the amendment to increase term limits? Was it former Senator and convicted felon Jake Files? Was it former Senator and convicted felon John Woods? Was it former Senator and convicted felon Hank Wilkins? Or was it current Senator and unconvicted alleged bribee Jeremy Hutchinson? Boy, that is...
Is there not an E for all of the above? Because they probably all had a finger in this in some way.
So which one is it? Which one are you going with?
The felon John Woods.
All right, you're going with B, former Senator and convicted felon John Woods. Again, by the way, I want to remind you here, what I said in the first hour had to do with term limits and, the people who I respectfully disagree with, who are saying that maybe we don't need term limits. And I'm just saying my hypothesis is that the current crop of legislators, some of which I just read off in these multiple choice options, do you think that's because they've been allowed to stay down there too long? And I think the answer is yes. I think they've been allowed to stay down there too long. Question number 7.
I just think they're weak people.
Well, that's the thing, though. We're all weak people. So, and that's the whole point of the whole reason we have the Constitution is because our founders knew we were weak people. And so they said we've got to limit what man can do to other men by force. And so naturally, if you could take the best person in the world and you could send them down to the Marble Palace, and that might be good for a while, but eventually I am going to hedge my bets, and I'm going to say that eventually somebody's going to wear you down. Somebody, because everybody's coming up to you asking you to do the opposite of what you promised your constituents to do, because there is a huge disconnect between the seat of power and what the average person thinks back home. And so, maybe, yeah, is it possible somebody could always stay above the fray? Absolutely, it's possible. It's just not likely. Term limits. Question 7. How were term limits amended and increased? Under a constitutional amendment proposed by the people, under a constitutional amendment proposed by the General Assembly, by statute of the General Assembly, by executive order of the governor. Which one?
A constitutional amendment from the General Assembly.
Okay. Going with B. Question number 8. Currently, what is the total number of years that a person may serve in the General Assembly in either the House or the Senate as stated in the Constitution? 8, 12, 14, or 16?
Pretty sure we covered this the other day. I'm pretty sure it's 16.
Okay. 16 is your answer. Moving on. Question 9. Currently, what are the term limits for the governor, lieutenant governor, attorney general, and all other constitutional officers? Is it 3 2-year terms, 2 4-year terms, 5 2-year terms, or 3 4-year terms?
Well, they're definitely 4-year terms, or else we wouldn't have to deal with ASA as often.
Right.
But actually, no, we wouldn't. No, I take that back.
Yeah.
We'd have to deal with them more because we'd have more campaigns.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So they're 4-year terms. I'm just trying to remember if it's 2 or 3.
Okay.
I'm hoping it's 2 because that means he gets term limited out this time around. If he gets
That would be correct. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna go 2.
Okay.
I'm gonna
2 4-year terms.
I'm gonna personally be hopeful after that's 2 years or 2 terms.
All right. Number 10, under special provisions of the 2014 Term Limits Amendment, what is the total possible number of years a state senator could possibly serve? 16, 20, or 22 years?
22.
Mm-hmm. That's what you think. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I think, and you would agree with your.
No, that was just involuntary.
I bet it was.
Number 11, under the proposed term limits constitutional amendment that may appear on the ballot this fall, how long could a person serve in the Arkansas House of Representatives? 2 2-year terms, 3 2-year terms, 2 4-year terms, or 6 2-year terms?
I think it's.
This is the proposed one that we may be voting on this fall if it gets on the ballot.
2 4 years, I think. No. I'm cheating.
I'm going to need an answer. How are you cheating?
I'm scrolling down to look at the answers for the next one because I'm using my brain a little bit here and just if this is
We're
going to
need an answer.
We're going to do 3 2-years.
Okay, 3 2-year terms for a total of 6 years. That's the proposed term limits. 6 years for the House.
And then
under the proposed term limits that may appear on the ballot this fall, what about the Senate? Is it 2 2-year terms, 4 years, 3 4-year terms, 12 years, 2 4-year terms, 8 years, 6 2-year terms, 12 years? Gonna need an answer.
I don't want to give an answer.
Let's see here. Where's my out of sound? My out of time. This sound means you are out of time.
Well, I have time.
No.
I'm looking at the show clock.
No.
I have time. Hey, I run this show here. All the stuff over here is me.
All right, which one is it? Under the ballot, what about the Senate? What are you going with?
Oh, man.
Come on, your reputation's on the line.
Yeah, I know. That's why I'm taking my time with this one. We're just going to go 2 4-year terms. I don't know.
2 4-year terms.
I have not one clue.
Under the proposed term limits constitutional amendment that may appear on the ballot, how long could a politician possibly serve in total in the General Assembly? So the House and the Senate. Is it 6 years, 10 years, 14 years, or 20 years?
I think it's 10.
Going with B, 10.
Because even though I think if I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, which I could very well be remembering incorrectly, that I don't think the
10 years.
Yeah.
You're going with 10 years.
Yeah.
We're moving on. Under the proposed term limits constitutional amendment that may appear on the ballot this fall, does it prohibit the legislature from simply referring out another constitutional amendment to increase term limits? Yes, it requires that term limits only be changed by the people's initiative, not the General Assemblies. Or no, politicians can run roughshod over the will of the people with unchallengeable proposed constitutional amendments with misleading ballot titles.
It'd have to be yes, because if it gets passed, then if it gets passed and this wasn't in there, then they could just change it back.
Okay, so
it'd have to be yes.
What are you thinking, Joe? How do you think you did on this?
I don't know. I think I did horribly.
You think you did bad? All right. Well,
by the way,
question 15.
Just real quick, letting you know, the people watching know this, but you didn't know this. I went back and changed this to 14 years.
Okay, you did, huh?
Yeah.
All right. Okay. All right. Well, so you can, if you haven't subscribed to Conduit Fractions email list, put your email address there, and what town do you live? Feel free, and then hit done. And let's see what your score is.
I didn't
Joe.
want to catch you off guard like I did that one time.
All right, come on.
I went back and changed something, and you weren't
Let's
paying
go.
attention.
What do we have here?
Horrible.
Drum roll, please. You got
I passed.
71.4%. I think that's because there's a lot of questions in this one.
Really,
you really did bad in the beginning. I mean, you did really awful in the beginning. Like I was thinking, like you were off to. I think you missed like maybe the first 3 or 4 questions.
Missed the first 3. What was the one I missed?
So just so you know, the term limits.
Oh no!
Term limits was first passed not in 1920.
In 1993.
1993.
Wow, I didn't
so we
think
want to correct the record there.
Earlier than that.
And you got wrong. Let's see here. Under the original term limits established, you could serve 3 2-year terms. You said 2 4-year terms.
I got these backwards. Whenever
because this was a House versus the Senate. Yeah, so you got those backwards.
Yeah, I got those.
Okay, so scrolling down here, let me see some of your other. Let's see, you got that right. 14 total years for that. It was amended in 2014 by convicted felon Senator John Woods. You got the next one right too. Term limits amended.
You know what's really sad?
Yeah.
The next one I missed was the one I changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was, and I got it wrong
with your gut result. Tell all those juniors who are probably going to take some sort of summer ACT prep.
Yeah,
go through your initial
gut. Like whatever you're feeling initially, that's probably the answer.
Mm-hmm.
Don't second guess yourself.
Here, go. I want to get down. So obviously the last question. Let's go to the last question here because people can determine their own opinions on this. But this is huge. Number 14, this doesn't get talked about much, but this is going to drive the Marble Palace nuts. Under the proposed term limits constitutional amendment that may appear on the ballot this fall, does it prohibit the legislature from simply referring out another constitutional amendment to increase term limits? Yes, it does. It essentially says if you guys want to set your own term limits, you can't. anymore with a legislative vote. You're going to have only the people will be able to change this. So if the legislature wants to stay in power longer, they're going to have to get their citizens together to put it on the ballot. And the reason that this, in my opinion, must happen, well, you've got really two options here. If you didn't like this option, then the other option is that you have to make legislative ballot titles that are referred out by the General Assembly reviewable by the Attorney General. And they're not. The way it goes now is they can put whatever ballot title they want on there and vote on it, and it appears on the ballot, and there's nothing we can do about it. And that's why convicted felon John Woods' issue 3 was successful back in 2014, because he deceived everybody. And if you and I get together and write a petition up and a law up, the Attorney General reviews what is going to be on the ballot, and she can reject it saying the title's misleading. But she doesn't have that power. Or he, in this case, Attorney General Leslie Rutledge, currently doesn't have that power when it comes to reviewing legislative acts that, result in a ballot title. So, this is what you get. This is what you get. We've got to wash this stain of Senator John Woods that's affected the entire state. We've got to undo this, and this is a way to do it. And you say, you know what? You're not going to be able... This is going to, on this particular issue, it's going to be a people's initiative. It's going in the Constitution. Yep. And I think it's certainly warranted. So, Joe, I don't know. I think you got to see you passed. Yeah. I'm just going to give you this right here for the whole quiz. I think you did a good job. I was worried, though. I'm going to be honest. I was worried. I thought you were going to flunk the whole thing
after the first 3 questions.
I really did. I thought, boy, he's going to be very disappointed.
Hey, well, I recovered.
You did. Folks, this is Conduit News, and we're going to take a break. Coming up at the bottom of the hour.